David was a man of few words and many regrets. His life had been consumed by work, leaving little time for his teenage daughter, Lily. Later had always been his promise to her. Later they would go to the park. Later they would bake cookies together. Later he would attend one of her piano recitals. But later never came. One rainy evening, the call came. A tragic car accident. Lily was gone. David sat in her room, surrounded by her things, a silence so loud it crushed him. He ran his fingers over her books, her favorite stuffed animals, her guitar leaning against the wall. And then he found it, a leather-bound diary tucked under her pillow. With trembling hands, he opened it. Dear Diary. Dad's always so busy. Sometimes I wonder if he even sees me. But I know he loves me. I just wish he'd tell me more often. David's chest tightened. Page after page, Lily had poured her heart out, writing about her dreams, her fears, and the little things that made her happy. Today, I gave my lunch to a boy at school who didn't have any. I hope he wasn't embarrassed. Mrs. Grayson's garden looks so sad now that she's sick. Maybe I'll plant flowers there next week. David couldn't stop reading. Each entry was a testament to Lily's kindness, her selflessness, her quiet strength. And then he saw it, her list of dreams. Take Dad to the beach at sunset. Learn how to bake Grandma's apple pie. Visit the homeless shelter and sing Christmas songs. Watch the stars all night. David's tears fell freely now. She had dreamed of moments with him. For the first time since her death, David left the house. He drove to the school and found the boy Lily had written about. I didn't even know her name, the boy said, his voice trembling. But she saved me that day. I was so hungry. Next, David visited Mrs. Grayson, the elderly neighbor. Her eyes filled with tears as she showed him the vibrant flowers Lily had planted in her garden. She said they'd bloom when I got better, Mrs. Grayson whispered. Piece by piece, David discovered Lily's quiet acts of love. And for the first time, he felt a flicker of purpose. He decided to fulfill her dreams, starting with the hardest one, watching the stars. One cold night, he spread a blanket in the backyard and stared at the sky. As tears rolled down his cheeks, he whispered, I'm sorry, Lily. I should have seen you sooner. The diary became his guide, each page leading him closer to her, closer to redemption. Slowly, David began to heal, not by forgetting his grief, but by embracing the love his daughter had left behind. David's journey to honor Lily's dreams became a way to reconnect with the world, even as his heart ached. Each step felt like a conversation with her, as though her words in the diary were guiding him. Next on the list was baking Grandma's apple pie. David hadn't cooked a day in his life, but he found Lily's handwritten recipe tucked between the pages of the diary. It was smudged with flour, a sign she'd tried to make it herself. The first attempt was a disaster. The crust burned, the filling spilled over the edges, and the kitchen smelled like smoke for hours. David sat at the table, staring at the charred pie, feeling like he had failed her again. But then he noticed a note scrawled at the bottom of the recipe. It doesn't have to be perfect, just made with love. Encouraged by her words, he tried again. This time, he took his time, pouring his heart into every step. When he pulled the golden brown pie out of the oven, he could almost hear Lily laughing, saying, See, Dad. You did it. David didn't eat the pie alone. He shared it with the staff at the homeless shelter Lily had always wanted to visit. As they sat together, eating slices of the pie, David told them about his daughter, her dreams, her kindness. She wanted to sing Christmas songs here, he said, his voice cracking. We can still do that, one of the staff members replied gently. And so, that December, David returned to the shelter with a small choir he'd organized. They sang Lily's favorite carols, filling the room with warmth and hope. For the first time since her passing, David felt a sense of peace. The final dream on Lily's list was taking her father to the beach at sunset. This one was the hardest. The thought of going without her felt unbearable. But he knew he had to. On a chilly spring evening, David drove to the shore with Lily's diary in his hands. The sun was a fiery orange, sinking slowly into the horizon. He sat on the sand, letting the waves wash over his feet, and opened the diary one last time. If we ever go to the beach, I'll tell Dad the thing I've been too scared to say out loud. He's my hero. Even when he doesn't see me, I see him. And I love him. David broke down, the weight of her words crashing over him like the waves. For years, he thought he was failing her, but she had seen him, truly seen him, and loved him anyway. As the sun disappeared, he whispered, "You are my hero too, Lily. And I love you more than words can say." David's life didn't magically become perfect after that day, but it became meaningful. He started a foundation in Lily's honor, dedicated to helping others fulfill their dreams. At every event, he shared her story, the story of a girl who lived a life of quiet heroism and taught her father how to truly live. Lily was gone, but her love remained, guiding David with every step he took. A silent goodbye. 2 years after Lily's passing, David's foundation, Lily's Light, had become a beacon of hope for countless families. His days were spent helping others, but his nights were still haunted by her absence. Despite the healing he'd experienced, a lingering question gnawed at him: was there more he could have done to save her? One evening, after an event honoring Lily's legacy, David received an unexpected letter. The envelope was simple, with no return address. Inside was a handwritten note. "Mr. Collins, I was the last person to see your daughter alive. There's something you need to know. Please meet me at the Bluebird Cafe tomorrow at 3 p.m. A friend." David's heart raced. Who could this be? And what could they possibly know? The letter reignited the guilt he'd tried so hard to bury. That night, sleep evaded him as memories of Lily flooded his mind. The next day, David arrived at the cafe early, clutching the letter in his hand. The minutes stretched endlessly until a young woman, no older than 20, approached his table. She wore a faded blue scarf and had a nervous energy about her. "Mr. Collins?" she asked hesitantly. "Yes," he replied, his voice cautious but kind. "I'm Sophie. I was in the car with Lily that night," she said, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. David's breath caught. "You were there?" "But," the police said. "I wasn't hurt," she interrupted, her voice trembling. "And I didn't come forward because I was scared. But I need to tell you what happened." Over the next hour, Sophie recounted the events of that fateful night. She and Lily had become friends at school, bonding over their shared love of music. That evening, Lily had insisted on giving Sophie a ride home, even though it was out of her way. "She wouldn't let me walk," Sophie said, her voice breaking. She said the world needed more kindness. As they drove through the rain, a truck had veered into their lane. Lily's quick reflexes saved Sophie's life, but she couldn't save herself. She saw the truck coming, Sophie whispered, tears streaming down her face. And she turned the wheel so it would hit her side instead of mine. "She saved me, Mr. Collins. She gave her life for me." David's world tilted. He had always thought Lily's death was a cruel accident, but now he knew it was an act of unimaginable bravery. After their meeting, Sophie handed David a small, crumpled piece of paper. "She told me to give you this," she said before leaving. David unfolded the note, his hands shaking. In Lily's handwriting were the words: "Dad, if you're reading this, I need you to know 2 things. I don't blame you for anything, and I'm proud of you. Keep being the man I always knew you could be." David clutched the note to his chest, a mixture of pain and pride washing over him. His daughter's love had not only saved Sophie but was now saving him again. The revelation about Lily's sacrifice became a turning point for David. He realized that her story wasn't just one of loss but one of courage and selflessness. He invited Sophie to join Lily's Light, and together they worked on a new project, the Silent Heroes Initiative, aimed at honoring ordinary people who performed extraordinary acts of kindness. As the initiative grew, David found a renewed sense of purpose. Lily's story inspired countless others to live with more compassion, proving that even in death, her light continued to shine. One evening, as David stood on a stage at a charity gala, he looked out at the crowd and said, my daughter taught me that the greatest legacy we can leave isn't wealth or fame, but love. Her life may have been short, but it was full. And because of her, I now understand what it means to truly live." The audience rose to their feet, their applause echoing through the room. But David wasn't looking at them, his eyes were on a single star shining brightly in the night sky. "Thank you, Lily," he whispered. "For everything. The gift she left behind." Months after Sophie revealed the truth about Lily's final moments, David began to notice subtle changes in his life. It wasn't just the growth of Lily's light or the success of the Silent Heroes initiative. It was something more profound, a sense of peace he hadn't felt since Lily's passing. But as the holidays approached, the familiar ache of her absence returned. Christmas had always been Lily's favorite time of year, and David dreaded the thought of celebrating without her. He decided to channel his grief into organizing a special Christmas event at the homeless shelter Lily had loved. One snowy afternoon, as he sorted through decorations in his attic, David stumbled upon an old box labeled Lily's Christmas. Inside were ornaments she'd made as a child, handwritten cards she'd given him, and at the very bottom, a small, wrapped gift with a tag that read, "To Dad, open when you need me most." David's breath caught. He held the gift in his hands, his heart pounding. He hadn't seen this before. Had Lily left it for him intentionally? The words felt like a lifeline, pulling him out of the depths of his sorrow. He placed the gift on his nightstand, unsure if he was ready to open it. The shelter's Christmas event was a resounding success. Families shared meals, children laughed, and the room was filled with the kind of warmth that Lily had always radiated. David played Santa Claus, handing out gifts donated by the community. As the night ended, a young girl approached him. She couldn't have been older than 7, with wide, curious eyes. "Are you Lily's dad?" she asked shyly. David knelt down, surprised. "Yes, I am." "How do you know Lily?" "My mom told me about her," the girl said, clutching a stuffed bear. "She said Lily was like an angel who helped people. I think she sent you here to help us too." Tears welled in David's eyes. "Maybe she did," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. That night, back at home, David stared at the small, wrapped gift on his nightstand. The little girl's words echoed in his mind. "She sent you here to help us too." With trembling hands, he unwrapped the gift. Inside was a small, leather-bound notebook, similar to Lily's diary. On the first page, in her unmistakable handwriting, were the words, "For the dreams we didn't get to share, but you can still live." David flipped through the pages, and his breath caught. It was another list, her future dreams, written as though she had known she wouldn't be there to fulfill them herself. "Help Dad find happiness again. Make Christmas magical for someone who needs it. Plant a tree for us in the park. Keep singing, even when it's hard to smile." David clutched the notebook to his chest, overwhelmed. Lily had left him a map, not just to honor her memory, but to rediscover his own joy. The next day, David went to the park where Lily used to play. He planted a young oak tree, its roots small but strong. As he stood there, watching the wind rustle the tiny leaves, he felt a sense of connection, as though Lily was right there beside him. Over time, the tree became a symbol of healing for David and the community. People would leave messages of hope and gratitude at its base, inspired by Lily's story. David began singing again too, just as Lily had wished. He joined a local choir and found that music, once a painful reminder of her absence, became a source of comfort and expression. Years later, as David stood beneath the now towering oak tree, he smiled. The pain of losing Lily would never completely fade, but her love had given him a purpose beyond his grief. And every time the wind whispered through the leaves, David felt her presence, reminding him that though she was gone, she had never truly left. "Thank you, Lily," he said softly, touching the trunk of the tree. "For giving me the gift of life again." The tree became a cherished part of the community. People gathered there to reflect, leave letters, and share stories of hope. David often visited the tree, reading the heartfelt notes left by strangers who had been touched by Lily's legacy. One brisk autumn morning, as David sat beneath the tree's golden leaves, he noticed something unusual. A small knot in the trunk seemed to have widened over time, revealing a slip of paper tucked inside. Curious, David gently pulled it out. It was weathered but intact, written in Lily's handwriting. "Dear Dad. If you found this, it means you're still looking for me. But don't be sad, I'm closer than you think. Every kind act, every smile, every moment you've shared in my honor keeps me alive. Thank you for showing the world the love we shared. I'll always be with you, Dad. Love, Lily." David's hands shook as he read the note. How had it gotten there? He had no memory of Lily ever hiding something in the tree. But then again, Lily always had a way of surprising him. The discovery of the letter reignited something in David, a sense of wonder he hadn't felt in years. He began asking others about their own connections to Lily's story. One by one, people came forward with tales of how Lily's kindness had inspired them. There was the struggling artist who'd found hope through Lily's foundation, the single mother whose child had received a scholarship in Lily's name, and even Sophie, who now ran her own nonprofit to help at-risk youth. Each story reminded David that Lily's legacy wasn't just about her life, it was about the ripple effect of her love. As winter approached, David decided to host a special event under the oak tree. He called it Letters to Lily. He invited the community to gather and write messages to their loved ones, living or departed, as a way to celebrate connection and healing. The evening of the event was magical. Lanterns hung from the tree's branches, casting a warm glow over the gathering. Families, friends, and strangers sat together, sharing their stories and writing their letters. Years after the first Letters to Lily event, David had settled into a life of quiet purpose. The oak tree had grown into a towering symbol of love and resilience, and the annual gathering had become a cornerstone of the community. But as the 10th anniversary of Lily's passing approached, David felt an unshakable heaviness. He had done everything he could to honor her, but the ache of her absence still lingered. He wondered if he had truly let her go, or if some part of him was still searching for her in every kind act, every whisper of the wind. That summer, David received a mysterious email from a woman named Eleanor Jacobs. She introduced herself as a historian specializing in letters and messages left at memorial sites. "I've been studying the oak tree and the letters left in Lily's honor," she wrote. "There's something remarkable about them. I believe you should see what I've discovered." Curious, David agreed to meet her. Eleanor arrived at his office carrying a weathered briefcase. She pulled out dozens of letters collected over the years, many of which David had read, and placed them on the table. "These letters tell a story," Eleanor said, her voice measured but excited. "Not just about Lily, but about the people who wrote them. Look closely." As David skimmed through the letters, a pattern began to emerge. A man who wrote about losing his wife had started a support group for grieving spouses. A young girl who thanked Lily for inspiring her had gone on to become a teacher, spreading that inspiration to her students. A struggling artist had found the courage to share his work with the world after leaving a letter at the tree. "They're all connected," Eleanor explained. "Every act of kindness sparked by Lily's story." As Eleanor revealed the interconnected web of lives touched by Lily's story, David's heart swelled with pride and sorrow. But then she handed him a sealed envelope, its edges worn with time. "This was left at the tree 5 years ago," she said. "I believe it's meant for you." David's fingers trembled as he opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper, and his breath caught when he recognized Lily's handwriting. "Dear Dad. If you're reading this, it means you've done everything I dreamed you would. You've shared our story, brought people together, and shown the world how powerful love can be. I always knew you'd make a difference. But now it's time for you to do something for yourself. You've spent so long living for me that you've forgotten how to live for you. I left one last gift for you, Dad. It's my way of saying thank you for being my hero. Look under the tree. Love, forever. Lily *. Tears streamed down David's face as he folded the letter. Eleanor, sensing the gravity of the moment, quietly excused herself. David rushed to the oak tree, his heart pounding. He knelt by the roots, brushing away leaves and dirt until his fingers hit something solid. It was a small wooden box, carved with intricate patterns of stars and waves, Lily's favorite symbols. He opened the box to find a photograph of him and Lily, taken years ago on a family trip. Beneath it was a small key and another note. This key unlocks the cabin where we spent my favorite summer. Go there, Dad. There's something waiting for you. The cabin was nestled deep in the woods, untouched since the summer Lily had been 9 years old. David drove there the next day, memories flooding back as he climbed the creaky wooden steps. Inside, the air was thick with nostalgia. The walls were lined with old photos, and the furniture was covered in dusty sheets. On the table in the center of the room was a leather-bound journal with a sticky note that read, "Open me." David sat down, his hands shaking as he turned the pages. It was a book of letters Lily had written to him over the years, letters she'd never sent. Dear Dad. I'm sorry for all the times I thought you didn't care. You cared more than anyone, even when you didn't know how to show it. Dear Dad. You always told me stories before bed. Did you know you were the hero in every one of mine? Dear Dad. If something ever happens to me, promise me you'll keep telling stories. Promise me you'll keep living, even when it's hard. David sobbed as he read each letter, overwhelmed by the love and wisdom his daughter had left behind. But the final page held one last surprise. It was a ticket to Paris, Lily's dream destination, and a note. This is for you, Dad. Go see the world for me. I'll be with you every step of the way. Months later, David stood on a bridge overlooking the Seine, the lights of Paris reflecting in the water. In his pocket was the photograph of him and Lily, and in his heart was the strength she'd given him. He smiled, feeling the weight of her presence as a breeze brushed past him. I did it, Lily, he whispered. I'm living for both of us now. And for the first time in years, David felt truly free.